Once the dust had settled, and after finding out that Luann came in contact with Lincoln, the group chat was alive with texts going back and forth on who was to blame for the incident. A few of the sisters pointed fingers at Clyde and Liam for their failure to keep a close eye on Lincoln, while the boys argued that Luann shouldn't have approached him and led him to help. In anger, Luann gave a fiery comment on how she wasn't going to let her little brother be sent to the hospital again. It was probably the first time anyone saw the comedian letting off a string of swears. The twins were still trying to figure out who his half words even meant. After Blamefest was dealt with, everyone finally shifted their concern to how Lincoln was feeling. The boy's fidgety state was quite obvious, though instead of outright anxiety, Lincoln appeared to be confused or lost on something. The white-headed boy was still shaken from running into his sister, and he had the perfect opportunity to try and harm him. It would have been like the nightmare he had, except that it was in the hallway and not in the classroom. He waited for her to do something, anything so he can have a valid reason to run away. But Luann just stood there, with a concerned look on her face. When Clyde and Liam tried to bail him out, Luann's eyes looked a little glassy when he dared to steal a peek at her. If Luann was really crying, why? Why didn't she attack him? And on that note, why did she save him from being trampled to death? Lincoln wasn't sure whether or not it was Janine or just another ruse just to let his guard down for the prank later on. After all, Luann had a habit of launching a prank on him when he at least expected it. She probably even recorded him getting stepped for her own amusement. But he didn't shake that, and she just gave him as he ran off. Lincoln's mind was telling him it was a hoax, but his heart was saying something else. These conflicts feelings plagued him for the rest of the day, even after Lincoln and Clyde made it back to the McBride residence. The kids put their sibling avoidance system back to work, making a note of the solution when it comes to situations where the whole school needed to attend. Clyde had repeatedly asked Lincoln if he'd be okay, especially as bedtime approached. Lincoln stated that he'd be fine despite growing nervous about sleeping again. Once the boys settled into their respective rooms, Lincoln lied on the bed, picking up an issue of Ace Savvy to read. Like usual, he stripped out of most of his clothing, only leaving his undies and shirt on. He would have removed his shirt, but the strap on his arm would begin to shuffle on his shoulder left on his skin for too long. The issue the loud boy read wasn't new by any means. Seeing as the date was almost a month ago, Lincoln just felt that if he needed to take his mind off of the day, indulging his favorite series. Although as he read through the pages, the tiredness finally made itself known. It wasn't long before Lincoln placed the issue on top of his eyes to darken the view before promptly falling asleep. His mind began to wander, building up yet another dreamscape to play in. Once it was finished, Lincoln found himself standing on the edge of a tall building. Looking at the dark streets for any interest, a black mass was covering his eyes. The younger boy was wearing nothing but a red suit and black boots and yellow belt, and an Ace navy blue colored cape that swayed in the wind. The front of it said Cape with A etched into the front of the collarbone area. To the public, he was known as Lincoln Loud, only ever male of the family of 13, with 10 sisters of various ages. At least that's what he was during the day. At night he was known as a savvy, the savviest crime fighter that lived in the city of Royal Woods. He wasn't alone either. Next to him sat like a girl, who appeared to be at least 7 or 8. Light blonde hair that was tied into a bun at the back of her head. The little girl was dressed in a purple commando, equipped with the spiked combat boots, BDU camo shorts, knee and elbow pads, a plain light-colored shirt, and a BDU camo patrol cap with the number 2 etched on the sides. Like Ace, and she had her own eye mask and cape, along with the genderade band oiler on her chest and 4-tube rocket launchers strapped on her back. Lily, or Deuce, as she's known, was not only one of the members of the Full House gang that packed a potent smell, but she used to be the youngest of the team. Some concerns of the high card, and 11 hearts about how taking a baby into crime fighting game. card counselor decided to produce the aging serum to ease their worries. While it may be a prototype stage, Deuce went from being a baby in diapers to being between Lily and Lucy in the twins' terms age. Aside from having to learn everything that came as old as she was, the main consequence was that Lily was lost the ability to produce the main weapon, stinky diapers. To remedy this, Card Counter made a specialized stink bombs with the formidable launcher. Granted, the Deuce was still some of the foulest smells that anyone has ever made the displeasure of taking a whiff off if she had to use the bathroom. While the launcher was a lot better than the 7-year-old slinging her own poo around, two things didn't change sudden age up. It was the tooth that stuck in her mouth and her bubbly personality. "Do you think you'll ever get action tonight, Lincoln?" the Deuce asked, her legs swinging back and forth as it dangled over the edge. Her voice sounded much like Lola's, but with more compassion and less snark. Ace gave a short laugh, turning to his head towards the little girl. "You really should stop calling me that when you're just patrolling, Deuce." "Well, it's the truth, though, and you didn't answer my question." "We might." Ace looked back at the streets, giving a frown. "If the girls don't need help, that is." Deuce frowned as well, bringing her knees to her chest. "It's not fair." Ace glanced at her. "Huh?" "It's not fair, Ace," she spoke heatedly. "You do your best to find these bad guys, and all they do is say bad things about you. It's not like you haven't been trying to find the card countless for Old Maid recently. I swear sometimes..." Looking down at the bandoiler, she unhooked some of the grenades, tossing it and catching it in a threatening manner. "Sometimes I just want to shove one of these grenades in their mouths." Ace then gave a sigh, looking up at the starry sky. "I wouldn't blame you if you did. Yeah, we had a bad streak recently, but it's not the end of the world." He then turned back to the Deuce. "At least we keep thwarting their plans, right?" The blonde nodded. "I just don't get why they don't see it." Lately, there has been a tension going on with the rest of the gang and Ace. The team had been unable to catch certain villains due to Ace's strategies not always working. As it grew especially frustrated when the team got very close to a villain down, only for something to interfere the last moment and the antagonist allowing them to escape. The frustration in these failed captures spread to their home life. Whenever Lincoln wanted to offer their help, their sisters would make up some excuse that Lincoln didn't need their help, or in some cases rudely tell them to butt out. One reason they were both by themselves was that currently, due to the others being out on a mission, they had been on the trail of the card shark for a while, and the girls jumped at the opportunity to bring him. When Ace offered to come, the gang confirmed that they had things covered. Deuce hadn't got the message as she had been on the can, and no one was willing to get within 30 feet from the restroom. "Well," Ace started, "that's probably because they need time to realize that things aren't as bad as they seem." The boy sat down next to his sister. "It's very funny, though." "What is?" Deuce asked, glancing at him. "Card Counter may have been the smartest member of the tree, but she is sure clueless when it comes to figuring out the whole picture." Deuce gave a cute giggle. "That's funny, especially since she's my roommate." A sudden ringing in their ears brought out the two little laugh fest. Both put their hands to ears. "This is Ace." "Ace, we need backup here, like now." It was strong suit. "Why, what's going on?" the boys started. "We found the card shark, but it turns out he's working with the card counters and blackjack. It's a little too much to handle." The line then cut out. Ace and Deuce then giving each other a glance of worry. A villain team-up spelt bad news no matter how you pronounce it. Only God knows what fiends could cook up when they were together. "Well, Deuce, guess you got your wish." The Grenadier bit her lip. "I'm starting to regret it." After getting a fix on the gang's location, the duo made their way towards some of the shipping facilities in the coast. They spotted Vanzilla perched ways away, hidden from the view from the casual observer. After infiltrating the area, Ace and Deuce went into the prone position. As they cautiously edged closer to the side of the roof, the 11-year-old took out a pair of binoculars, scanning the area for threats. Typical villain hideout in a spot that's not far away from the public and secured. The fact is by the pure means, is that it's probably Card Shark's territory. You see anything? Deuce whispered. Ace shook his head. Nope, no guards, nothing. They're probably expecting us. So what are we gonna do? Ace put his binoculars away. I'll go in first, cause the distraction to try and lure them out, while you try to find the girls and free them. Deuce frowned. But can't I help you? I mean, this is a free arch enemies we're talking about. The older hero put a hand on Deuce's shoulder. Don't worry, Deuce. They may be free, but I always have a sat up my sleeve. Plus, if things get hairy, I got a few more tricks to play. The blonde hummed for a moment of thought. She took her complacent. Okay, just be safe, Lincoln. I will, Lily. The two hugged before beginning their plan. They stayed tight glued to the roofs before splitting up, cover more ground. Ace found it pretty cool on how not a single guard was in sight, and it was practically near the center of the complex. Either they set up the trap on the inside or something else was going on. His instincts were telling him that it was clearly something was practically amiss, but he just couldn't figure out what it was. Looking at the side, Ace noticed a couple of sparks emanating from the corner of the building. Squinting his eyes, it looked as if something was torn off the amount. Glancing around, there was ground bits and pieces of metal were scattered about. The hero jumped out from the roof to get a closer look, trying to make as little noise as possible. Tapping it, Ace confirmed that it was the lens of the camera. The boy shifted his attention to the sides of the building, noticing that many other cameras were broken off. Those weren't broken, they appeared to be offline. Card counter and strong suits work. Nightclub would have smashed these lenses to prevent their amp. Ace spotted a large warehouse that seemed to have quite a bit of activity going inside. Making his way over, he found a ventilation shaft before popping the hatch open and sneaking inside. Beside the sound of the machinery going on, it was eerily quiet. After a few moments of crawling through the dusty shaft, Ace spotted a large room form of the ground floor in the darkened room. He popped the grate open, dropping 5 stories down the floor, rolling reduced the pain he felt on his feet. When he got out of his roll, the boy was surprised and came face to face with the card shark himself. But that wasn't the only thing was wrong. The villain himself was out cold, and so were like his henchmen. All of them had been tied up into colorful straps. No doubt the certain member of the gang. 11, but where are the other? Ace stopped when he noticed that something wrapped around his body tightly, before being pulled back by a large force. Ace barely got to scream before he was slammed into one of the massive containers, a large ringing noise emitted from the impact. He was then hoisted up into the air and left dangling from the ceiling. Ah! Looking down at himself, the boy saw the same colorful strap that tied up the villains. He gawked in surprise before the lights suddenly kicked on, temporarily blinding the hero. It seems like my calculations were a little bit off when it came to the timing. A familiar, intelligent voice stated, "Card counter?" Ace blinked twice just to adjust the brightness of the turning the head towards the voice. When he found out it wasn't just card counter, but the rest of the gang missing. 11 hearts kept on hold as the sash kept them bounded. What's going on? Easy, Queen of Diamonds stated. This little coupe Ace. She flashed her toothy grin at her mockery. A coupe? I knew you guys were. Ace stopped himself when the thought just came in. Wait a minute, you guys can't be real. There's no way my real team wouldn't actually do something like this. You're all crazy and you're just a bunch of fakes. Fakes, he claimed with a smug grin. The girls looked at themselves before giving a haughty laugh, making the 11-year-old form a scowl. You wish that were true, wouldn't you, twerp? High Card spoke between giggles. Sorry, lame-o, but we're done the deal here. I mean, who could fake this? Strong Suit stated, as she picked up a large piece of pipe and threw it at Ace. The boy's eyes bulged out before swinging himself backwards, narrowly missing the possible impalement. The pipe struck itself on the roof, making a loud clang. Need any more encouragement, Ace? I would say play a loud tune to make you lose your hearing, Nightclub stated with a sinister grin. Alright, fine, you guys are real, but why are you girls doing this? Well, there's a certain ace of a zero hanging up for a reason, ha ha ha. The Joker laughed, making everyone else roll their eyes. What she mean is, we're literally tired, Ace. High Card folded her arms. Your constant failures and leader have shown that you're incapable of leading this team, or capturing villains for that matter. As if you saw getting up there, we already rounded up Card Shark without your help. At this point, it's safe to say, we literally don't need you anymore. But of course, Ace gave a deadpan look. So you lured me just to gloat? There's more to it, actually, Ada Space said. We felt that you probably wouldn't agree with the changes, so we believe we have changed your mind in a different way. Well, of course I wouldn't agree with that, Ace shouted, rocking back and forth slightly from the position. Look, I know you guys are mad about this streak of bad luck, but I'm trying, okay? It's not easy when you're the only person on the team who's good at tracking others. I disagree, Card Counter said, pulling up a small computer. After studying the traffic routes of suspiciously large numbers of shipments leading to this facility, as well as tracing some of our adversary goons after they were spotted on the camera a couple days ago, I deduced that Card Shark was based on somewhere within this area. And now, we are here. One captured villain, and one fool who claims to be the hero. Hey, I was in the hero in the game long before you guys started it, Ace retorted. And it seems that the student came back to master, Card Counter said back. For all we know, you might be working with our enemies. Ace let out a frustrated growl escape him. I would never do such a thing. For as long as I live, I'd rather be dealing with justice than being served it. Well, you might do that, but what would anyone else think? Royal Flush amused, leaning her trusty pipe on the wrench. The boy narrowed his eyes. What are you talking about? Just think on it for a second. We all know the general public looks up to you, but what if we were to change that opinion about you? The Queen of Diamonds chuckled darkly. It would be very easy to make people believe that you were leading them on this the whole time. It would be a world of 11 against 1, Ace, Hearts quipped. Card Counter slapped her forehead. 9/11. Wait, it's the anniversary of that day already? Hearts asked in confusion. High Card gave an exasperation sighed. 11 could be so ditzy that it'd be amazing of how she used to slash so well. Anyways, that's what will happen if you don't agree to our terms. Let me guess, Ace Deadpan, you want me to quit being a hero or else you're going to ruin my reputation and come after me? Guess the savvy part of your name true reigns it then. The oldest member gave a smug grin at the younger hero. So what's going to be? Ace then glared at the girls below him, before looking up at where 11 Saja kept them suspended. The young hero rocked himself back and forth, before doing a few twists and turns in the air. He performed a downward push, and that caught the 11 of the Hearts off guard. She gripped at the sash and began to gain control, but it was too late. Ace unraveled himself from the buildings and landed on the floor. The 11-year-old had his eyes closed just to loosen his joints a bit. Deuce was right. You girls are nothing but petty and selfish. All because you can't handle the fact that you failed to bring our enemies to real justice lately? How do you think I felt after each battle we did? I was upset? Yes. Was I angry? Yes. But I would never think to place blame on anyone on my team, because I knew there would be another chance at finally bringing some peace to our city. He curled his hands into fists. You can mock me, back me up the wall, and threaten me all you want, but there's one thing you don't ever take from me. Ace glared from his former team. My love for heroism. Strong Suit chuckled, cracking her knuckles. That could be arranged. Each of the girls spread out into lone hero sides. Last chance, Ace. Back out now, or you'll save your lifetime of pain and misery. If you refuse, well, I'll be sure to give you a final, decent funeral, Spades ordered. At this point, Ace was done talking. There wasn't anything that could be said or that wouldn't lead to physical conflict. Taking up the fighting stance, the girls knew that they were going to have the message spread across the hard way. The running machinery took over as the primary source of noise, as the Full House gang then stood in a tense of a standoff. Ace darted his eyes to each of the girls at his front sides, silently daring them to make them his first move. His ears were then training on those behind him, listening for any sudden movements. Strong on Suit curled up into her fingers. Royal Flush tightened her grip on the wrench, Even 11 of hearts stretched like a sash, like a small whip, making a small popping sound. Nightclub got her arm amp set up. High card fixed her eye mask. Joker got her personal jack-in-the-box ready to whip said spades, and Queen readied her own weapons. With a split second, 8 of the heroines attacked at once. Now there was a reason why Ace Savvy was the leader of the group. Aside from having the intention ability to summon on his allies wheel from the deck of cards, he was an excellent fighter as well. Despite being at the same time, the heroines were coming after him, after another. Ace sidestepped a punch from a high card before using her forward momentum to sling none to the ground. Nightclub swung her guitar at his head, forcing him to lean back to avoid the potential concussion. Ace then rolled out of the way, and then she swung it down on him. Before using the guitar to deliver a solid kick to the midsection, as Nightclub stumbled back, Joker's jack-in-the-box popped out with a large mallet. Not having enough time to dodge it, Ace then took Nightclub's axe and used it to block the hit. The toy kept trying to pound him before Ace finally managed to get a solid hard hit to knock off the balance. Joker had tried to move. She wouldn't get crushed herself. "Get your hands off me axe, dude," Nightclub yelled as she charged at him. "You want it back, huh? Well, bad here," Ace said before cutting the charging musician off by throwing her guitar at her chest. The 15-year-old was knocked back to the ground on the floor, dazed from the impact. Ace then turned to a familiar roar sound. Strong Suit was running at him with one of her signature head charges, and she knew better than to try and stop something like that, since Strong Suit was like a car running at 40 miles per hour when she was charging. However, she couldn't steer herself as well known running at full speed, nor brake very quickly unless she hit something. Hearing a small noise behind him, the 11-year-old saw 8 of spades about to attack her with her shovel. Ace smirked and seeing the opportunity to take both of them out at the same time. He then stood until Strong Suit got close enough. Right as she lunged at him, the hero ducked under her attack before launching a kick to her stomach. 8 of spades then stopped to attack her teammate as was sailing towards her. She tried to avoid it, but Suit slammed into her like a train. "Ow," she wheezed. "Sorry," Strong Suit replied. Another yell was heard as Royal flushed and jumped onto the hero. Wrench was at ready. Behind her, the Queen of Diamonds was summoning her several card-shaped gems. Being more experienced than 2, Ace then showed how to subdue them without injury. When Flush got close, he grabbed the wrench and wrestled it from her hands before shoving the 6-year-old to the ground. As she was getting up, Ace put a foot on her torso and held her down. By then, Queen was finished summoning her and flumming over the dozens of gems at the 11-year-old. This proved to be a mistake as Ace used the wrench to deflect all the shots around the room. Royal Flush covered her face due to the sparks with deflection and produced. Gem shards were set in each and every way. Some impacted the ceiling lights, causing it to rain down the color. Since Royal Flush was still on the floor, Ace protected her from any shards that might have hit her. The rest of the heroines were forced to protect or dodge the incoming projectiles. High Card, Strong Suit, and Joker got cuts on their arms and legs from the assault. 11 of Hearts got cuts into her sash, while the 8 of Spades and Nightclub used their respective weapons as shields. The Rocker was not too pleased with seeing the strings cut, but giving a murderous glare at the lone hero. As for the Queen of Diamonds, she protected her face from her own attack, but one of the shards nailed her right in the tiara, causing her to shatter. The girly twin looked in horror at her trademark, her headpiece. Without it, she was unable to manipulate any gems within her reach. It also happened to be her favorite fashion accessory. She gripped at the broken pieces of anger, not caring if her hands started to bleed. "You ruined my tiara! My sash!" 11 of Hearts screamed in both of their fears and anger. High Card examined the damage done to her suit. It was probably the greatest of fashion statement Lenny had made for her and the rest of the team, and now Ace just damaged it. The 17-year-old then pulled out a small piece of glass that stuck in her forearm. "Oh, and you just made a whole lot easier, little bro." As the girls started to recognize and retaliate, the only one heroine had not engaged Ace at all. Card counter stayed off to the side, observing the battle to find any potential weakness they could exploit. She then couldn't hope to match her brother in physical combat. Seeing Ace was standing by himself as well, despite it being outnumbered. However, part of the reason was due to the girls not coordinating their attacks. It seemed to have fixed that. Reaching up to her ear, "Nightclub." "What, dude?" growled the 15-year-old as she was hesitantly restraining her guitar. "Do you have your amp set up?" "Yeah, why?" "I think you know why." The 4-year-old gave a small smile. Deuce gave a frustrated growl as she yet checked the never empty building. She figured that if her sisters were captured, they'd be hidden amongst the outer buildings of the complex. So far, it looked like it was a needle in the haystack. No guards, no traps, nothing that could give an indication of where the girls would be. The generator wished that she was good at finding clues like Ace was. Maybe she had been easier at the time. Speaking of Ace, the 7-year-old hoped that he was doing okay. It was a little weird how a large facility like this, with three of their archenemies, didn't have a single grunt walking around to keep watch. But Deuce just looked to the sign, and that might be things easier than expected. She couldn't be more wrong. The grenadier sat down on the roof, wrapping her fingers around her arm as she tried to figure out how to solve this little dilemma. At the moment, loud music reached her ears, making Deuce look behind her. It was coming from the warehouse near the water, and that the only one person Deuce knew who played that rock-like music was No Tomorrow. "Nightclub," she uttered, a small smile crossing her lips. Vaulting over the rooftop, she reached the warehouse and the music was originating from. All the windows had been blown out from the constant bass tones being played, and Deuce felt her insides vibrating a little. "Leave it to Luna to think that she's always playing for an audience," Lily thought to herself. She slipped through one of the broken windows, making sure to avoid cutting herself. When she got to one of the upper walkways and looked down below, whatever confidence she had quickly melted into confusion and horror. Nightclubs was intent playing a jam session, but it seemed to be focusing all the energy directly on Ace. The 11-year-old was on his knees, eyes shut, gritting his teeth and frustrating as he blocked out the sounds with his hands. It was proving to be a futile, but seeing that he continued to squirm in agony, the rest of the heroines were smugly watching, making sure he couldn't retaliate for the next attacks. Strong Suit then charged at him with the signature move. Ace managed to get an eye open and saw the attack coming, but couldn't muster a proper defense. Right as he tried to move out of the way, Strong Suit slammed into the left side of his upper body. Ace screamed as he swore he felt his bones in the left arm break in several places. He tumbled across the floor several times before coming to a stop on his back. The boy gave a small hitched breath as he sat up, his arms shooting with constant pain whenever he tried to move it. "Guess that really cost you an arm, huh?" Joker laughed. Strong Suit cracked her neck joints. "Got any tricks now, Ace?" Ace grimaced. It was difficult fighting his own teammates all at once, but if they were going to start working together, he wouldn't stand a chance with one of his arms broken. He was going to have to call for help. Now, reaching for his belt, he felt around for his stacked deck, only to feel emptiness. To his surprise, his face was clear as day. "Looking for this?" A chilling voice spoke behind him. Looking back, Ace saw that 8 of Spades was in the possession of his belt, and with it, his entire deck. "You won't need this anymore, trust me." The 8-year-old dropped to the ground before smashing it into pieces. "He won't be needing that suit much longer either, and may be breathing," the Queen of Diamonds claimed. The girls surrounded him once again, fists all ready, and with the flew and drew close combat, weapons having them brandished. Ace gave an audible gulp, fury beginning to replace his anger. He heard stories about how heroic teams sometimes had falling outs and fought each other, but he believed his team was so close that they wouldn't even have to go through that issue. Seems like he was wrong on that end. No one was going to come for help him now, and that his deck was compromised, leaving him at the full mercy of his teammates. He couldn't even contact Deuce, who was probably still looking for her sisters. At this point, he just hoped that she wouldn't have to witness what was about to happen. The Grenadier watched in complete shock that her own teammates just jumped on their leader and started beating him onto the floor. She had to cover her mouth to suppress the whimpers that she emitted watching the scene unfold. Several parts of her brain were arguing what to do, leaving her frozen on the spot. Aside from being shocked and confused, she was angry and heartbroken from the same time. She was angry at the girls that they were beating on their older brother, while they had a little chance of fighting back, assuming they might be mad about the leadership as of late. But even then, she had to ask herself, why? They were a family, for crying out loud. Families were supposed to love and care for each other. Even then, in the hardest times, the girls that pretty much they'd take it out on Ace, Deuce involuntarily winced of how hard blow her leader had echoed across the room. Hot tears began to stream out of her eyes as she could clearly hear her brother's pleas to the girls to stop fall on deaf ears. Her body shivered with each broken breath she took. If Deuce was strapped onto the chair and forced to watch torture TV programs, this would definitely be on the top of her lists. Finally, after 5 agonizing minutes, the heroinist then let up. Ace was then sprawled on the floor, and to Lily, he looked as if he got mauled by a lion. His costume was torn in various places. His eye mask was practically torn in two. One of his eyes was swollen shut, along with his nose and mouth being bloody. His face had numerous bruises and cuts, and his chipped tooth was jagged with a large piece missing from his right side. He wouldn't doubt that if his sisters broke a couple ribs. The only thing Ace could really do was let out a small whimpers as he lied on the floor, the girls admiring their handiwork. "If you just agreed to us, Ace, it wouldn't have to come down to this," Highcart stated. "We may not even need to blackmail you. Hopefully this will be a reminder that you should never try being a hero from now on." "Unless you want a repeat of your last breakdown," Nightclub chuckled. "So what do we tell Deuce?" Lana asked. "Fear not, my plumbing companion. I am sure she'll understand," Card Counter replied. Deuce gritted her teeth, a fire burning in her eyes as what she had just heard. Her hands then curled into fists, and she shook like a volcano about to blow its top. "Oh, I understand, all right," she muttered, putting her gas mask on. It was obvious that she didn't need any lines for work, or else it wouldn't be effective. Loading in 4 rounds, the 7-year-old aimed at her sisters and pulled the trigger. 9 heroines twisted their heads at the sound of something being fired, only to come face to face with a volley of green-colored rockets flying towards them. The RPGs exploded with their feet, releasing a green cloud that was covered an area of 20 square feet. The girls gagged from the smell, their eyes watering as their many faces in an attempt to block out the smell. Ace was having a hard time trying to breathe at this point. It was bad enough that he felt one of his ribs poking his lungs. He certainly didn't want to breathe in the crap air. Thankfully, someone put a mask on him, filtering out the toxic air. "Deuce?" Ace muttered. "I got you, big brother," the Grenadier stated. Deuce had dropped down with the distraction to started dragging her brother to safety. One of the girls caught her for leaving, but the 7-year-old fired another second volley at them. With so much green gas filling the air, it provided the perfect cover to escape. Spotting a couple of carts on the floor, Deuce grabbed them before taking her brother to the exit. It was rather a slow going since Ace could barely walk, and the Grenadier was barely strong enough to carry him. After clearing the entire shipping complex, Deuce then found a small alley to hide him in. Ace collapsed to his hands and knees as he removed the mask. His breaths were ragged as he fought to get the air cleaned in his lungs. Deuce then removed her mask and hugged her brother, only easing up a little when he started to groan in pain. I saw everything," the blonde started. I should have jumped earlier, but I froze." Tears were creeping in her eyes again. "Hey," Ace replied weakly, wiping a tear from her face. "It's not your fault. If I was in your place, I might have." He paused, a terrible feeling stirring in his chest. I might." He stopped as he started having a massive coughing fit, spitting out blood in the process. Ace fell to his side, no longer having the energy to sit up. Deuce scrambled to him, quickly glowing fearful in his eyes. "Ace?" She shook him. "Lincoln? Lincoln?" The boy heard her cry as he started to lose conscious. Lincoln, a male voice replaced Lily's. Lincoln shot his eyes open, seeing nothing but dark pages of a savvy comic he was reading earlier. Removing the issue from his face, the boy squinted his eyes as the sunlight left the window, made himself unknown. Clyde? He looked up at the open door. Hey, just checking on you. Looks like you fell asleep reading A Savvy. Yeah, Lincoln scratched his head. It wasn't the first time he fell asleep in that fashion. His brain was wiring itself awake as he registered the question to his best friend. So, you ready to speak with Dr. Lopez today?